We're at week 51 this week. Can you believe we've made it down to the last 2 weeks of the year? We have made it through this, traveling through the Word, the entire Bible in a year. We've done it. Who knows what's going to happen next year, but we're going to just be happy for this year right now, okay? And although I studied during the weeks I was supposed to, I wasn't really writing and condensing my notes, so I just had to condense my notes all like this week. And so now I'm just now making all 3 videos this week because it was Thanksgiving. And then I had my goddaughter's wedding, and then it was Christmas, and I've been enjoying my mommy. So here we are. This week, Job 12 through 27, Psalm 100, 101, 141, and Revelation 13 through 17. So Job chapter 12. Now remember what happened with Job. He's talking to his friends. So now Job is going to reply to Zophar in this one. Because remember, Zophar was the insensitive one. Y'all remember that? He was the most insensitive. He was the friend number 3. He was like, Job, be thankful for, that life isn't so bad. That was that one. So Job's reply went, Job basically told him, you know what? You kind of got a big head. Because you think you're God's gift of wisdom that you can come and tell me. Job knew who he was in God. And so he was like, so you're not all that, okay? And you're not God's spokesperson, all right? And Job was sure that he could hold his own against all 3 of his friends. And he told them to, guess what? Let silence be your wisdom. Ooh, my grandmother taught me that lesson. Silence. There is so much power in silence. Like sometimes when someone says something foolish to you, you just need to be silent. Sometimes when somebody posts something and you want to clap back real quick, silence. Powerful. Powerful. Okay, so Job was that smart, because he told his friends, let silence be your wisdom. Because Proverbs tells us sometimes you don't know who's a fool until they open their mouth. So sometimes silence can keep people from knowing how foolish you are. That was Job. Okay, let's get back to Job. So Job 14, Job reminded them that life is short and is filled with grief, and that God enters into our suffering with us. Now see how all this stuff is happening with Job. And while Job may be doing a little fussing and complaining, but Job's head was still on straight. Okay. And then we get to chapter 15. Now we're back to one of the first couple of friends. Eliphaz was, I believe he was the first friend that spoke. Yeah, he was. Okay. So Eliphaz tells Job, he goes, with no sympathy at all. And then he had talked to the other 2. They had a huddle. And so Eliphaz, I guess, was like the spokesperson of the 3 for this moment. Eliphaz speaks to Job and tells him, basically, Job, you're a windbag. Okay? He says, suck it up, buttercup. All right? And quit whining and complaining. Quit blowing smoke in the wind. Quit whining. All these things. That's what he came up with. After the 3 of them huddled, he became the spokesperson for the 3 of them, and that's basically what he wanted to say. So Job replies. Job basically told all of them that this was between him and God anyway, and that it was only God who allowed his family to be devastated. God was the one that did this. Job falls further into despair in chapter 17, okay, because he realized at this point God wasn't just going to step in and make it go away. And that's what we want a lot of times. Like when we are in a situation, what we want is for God to just come in and take it all away. All right. So Job realized by now that God isn't going to step in and just take away this grief. But he was able to tell his friends, guess what? This don't even have anything to do with you. Okay. So that was that. And then Bildad was the second friend that spoke. He's speaking again. He says, Job, you know how you can spot a wicked sinner? When he goes through the stuff that you're going through. So basically he was telling Job, the stuff that you're going through when you lost your kids, lost all your stuff, that basically tells me you're a sinner. So, like when we think because we're sick, somebody has sinned against God. Remember how the disciples asked Jesus, who of the blind men, who sinned in this family? And Jesus was like, nobody. This was about my glory. About God getting glory. Okay, so Job, his ailment wasn't because he sinned, but that's what Bildad figured. If you going through some stuff, you must have sinned. Let's figure out what it is. Okay? So Job replies to him Basically, Job asked his friends, who invited y'all to come out here and pass judgment? Okay? Who made y'all able to come pass judgment? And then who invited you to do it? Because remember, Job was sitting there crying on his own. Job didn't call up his friends and say, oh my gosh, come have a pity party with me. Job was minding his own business. His friends came, sat with him for 7 days in silence, and then decided they were going to play God's spokesperson. Okay? So that's what Job said to them. And then Zophar, the third friend, the one who was the most insensitive, he speaks, and he basically attempts to answer and explain all of life's questions. You know how we always ask, why do wicked people prosper and good people suffer? So basically, that's what he was doing. He was asking that question. Okay? And then Job replies to him. Okay? And sometimes you got to look at your attitude. Okay? And that's, Job had a good attitude at this point. You know, remember I told you Job was going in despair, but Job, basically, Job would come back every now and then. He'd like go down a little bit, but he'd come right on back up to the mountain. So Job, his attitude was one of a person who lives for the moment, not for eternity. Okay, so that's what Job was telling Zophar. Listen, if you live for the moment, you will think that the wicked is prospering. Because the time that we have on earth is but a snap according to eternity. So the wicked may prosper for a snap of time, but for those of us who love Jesus, we have an eternity of prosperity. So if you have your focus only on the here and now, you will think the wicked are prospering. But if you have an eternal focus, then guess what? You'll realize they really aren't. All right? So then Eliphaz speaks. We're back to the first one. All right? Eliphaz, now he has some good theology at this point. Okay, so finally he's starting to at least talk with some sense. His theology is God doesn't need any of us. You nor me, Job. God is sufficient and complete within himself. So basically he's telling Job that God doesn't have to necessarily respond to your reply, to your call for him. And God doesn't need us to do things in order to make him more of a God. He's completing himself. So then Job says, he maintains that if there was a court session, he would be declared not guilty by God. Okay? Then he says things are not like they seem in chapter 24. All right? The wicked don't always get their way. See how Job is like he's in his right mind at this point? So now Bildad, he has something to say. He goes, a human born of a woman cannot be pure and can't be justified before God. Okay, Bildad. So then Job replies back, the fate of the wicked is hopelessness, even if it seems like they're prospering in this life. As much as we know about the majesty of God from seeing his creation, this is what Job tells him. We've only scratched the surface. In seeing all of God's creation, we've still only seen but the surface of it. And so for this, I said, Lord, remind me that I can live for your agenda in this life, or I can bow to your agenda in the next one. And that's pretty much for everybody. Okay? My question is, even when your life is upside down and the wicked are seeming to prosper, will you keep your hope in God? And then we get to Psalm 100. This was be thankful. Let the whole earth shout triumphantly to the Lord. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Psalm 101, a vow of integrity. I will sing of your faithful love and justice. I will sing praise to you, Lord. I will pay attention to the way of integrity. In Psalm 141, protection from sin and sinners. Lord, I call to you. Hurry to help me. Listen to my voice. When I call on you, Lord, set a guard for my mouth. Keep watch at the door of my lips. Do not let my heart turn to any evil thing. Man, I have to say that scripture every day. Lord, set a guard before my mouth. Watch the door of my lips that I might not sin against you. That was a version that I read, and the one that I kind of liked, that's the one I memorized. And so then we get to Revelation 13 through 17. 13, we get the beast from the seal, the beast from the sea and the earth. And then this is about the Antichrist and those who will and will not take the mark of the beast. Chapter 14, we get the lamb and the 144,000, proclamation of the three angels, reaping, earth's harvest. The 144,000 would be the Jewish evangelists who would announce the gospel during the tribulation. The angels, okay, basically you can choose the mark or you can worship God. Both of them had consequences. One had a good consequence and one had a not so good consequence. And then the reaping earth's harvest was a judgment upon those who rejected God. Chapter 15, you get the preparation for the bowl judgments. 7 angels with 7 plagues were given 7 bowls filled with the wrath of God. Chapter 16, you get all those different bowls with the wrath of God. The first bowl was painful sores on those who had the mark. The second bowl, the sea turned to blood. The third bowl, the river and the springs of water turned to blood. The fourth bowl, the sun scorched people, who cursed the name of God. And the fifth bowl was poured on the beast in his kingdom, which was plunged into darkness. Okay. And at this point, people were gnawing their tongues and still cursing God. I can't believe it, but it was still happening. The sixth bowl, the Euphrates River dried up, and that was to make preparation for something that was about to happen. And the seventh bowl was thrown into the air. There was lightning, thunder, earthquake, and hail. Hail like 100-pound balls of hail. Cities were split, islands and mountains basically disappeared. And then chapter 17, you get the woman and scarlet beast and the meaning of both. The woman was represented a prostitute, it was symbolic of the city of Babylon, and that referred back to Genesis 11:1-9, when God's people were doing all kind of a hot mess. And then the beast was the Antichrist. I said, Lord, remind me that consignment to hell is a free choice, the same way salvation is. It's a penalty that people bring on themselves. So God doesn't put us there. We choose. We can choose salvation or we can choose hell. That's it. And my question for you is, if you know the source of all things good, do you share that wisdom with others? So if you know the source, are you sharing that with others? And so those were our travels for this week. Next week, which is week 52, the last week of the year, we will do Job. We'll finish it up, 28-42. And then we'll do Psalms 102, 103, and the last Psalms in the Bible, 150. And then we'll finish up Revelations 18-22. Well, those are our travels. Thanks for traveling with me. One more week of traveling, and we will have knocked it out for the year. Thanks for traveling with me.